welcome to another edition of Real Estate Investor Talk. And I'm sitting here at Sanlam Investments, Sanlam Alternatives, with Ben Kodisang. Earlier on, we were talking about all the life insurance companies, which Sanlam and Mutual and Liberty, they all held prime real estate assets right to the 90s, right into the early 2000s. And we were saying that a lot of them were actually sold off. And simply, I think a lot of life companies, and maybe you can help explain it, but they just see it, they don't see it as a great asset for whatever reason. And I think soon after that there was quite a property boom thereafter. And then also getting to asset managers where the pension funds are almost limited to only invest 5% up to 5%.
Yeah, so a couple of big trends, I suppose, that have been, I'll say, happening pretty much from the 80s, that maybe can dimension it for you. So the one significant one was the move from defined benefit into defined contribution.
Right.
So under defined benefits, I suppose a lot of pension funds as well as insurance policies basically promised to pay you on a certain event, but then that liability belonged to the pension fund, or it belonged to the life insurer.
Okay.
So what it basically meant in the defined benefit then is that because your liabilities were long term, both insurance companies as well as pension funds then could buy real assets that are long term in nature. So that's why they spearheaded the investment into property and other long dated assets, so that they could manage the liabilities appropriately.
Okay.
So from the 80s, what happened is defined contribution changed to defined benefit changed to defined contribution, which was a change of regulation.
Right.
So what it basically meant is that members of pension funds stayed with the liability as opposed to the employer.
Okay.
So now that was very significant for a number of reasons. So one reason then is that because you're staying with the liability as a person or as a member, it basically took away the benefit from the actual pension fund. So the unintended consequence then was that from a duration perspective, the whole savings industry became shorter term orientated. So what we've seen in South Africa now is that we've had we find ourselves now where 77% of the pension funds are now defined contribution. And within life companies, as they needed to also remain relevant to the changing needs of their customers, meant that we call them legacy books now, which are more long-term orientated. The current products that they are writing are more or less invested in what they call market-linked, as in the more short-term traditional assets as opposed to long-term.
Okay.
So you've seen then a move, I guess, where both pension funds as well as life companies have had a preference for more liquid assets. So they needed to then effectively dispose of their long-dated portfolios or assets, so they could redeem the aging profile of their books. And the good thing is it provided a lot of property that was really a great catalyst for the listed sector.
Right.
And at the same time though, it basically means now that the sources of capital to fund these real assets I suppose has been challenged, because even if you look at banks, banks were able to also invest in long-dated assets, and because of changing regulation, they made to dispose of a lot of those businesses.
Right.
So I think you've had a few fundamental shifts that are driven by regulation, driven by changes, which basically means that to provide liquidity and capital, the listed sector is probably a good place to source it.
Right. Okay, so going forward then, how do you take, is it on your agenda maybe to first of all drive more real estate? Is it possible? Secondly, you also, I know transformation is a big thing, because it's also, I think, how can we speed that up? So double-barreled question. One, the real estate, and secondly, how can we sort of transform the industry? What are the things we need to do to maybe transform it a lot quicker and get people to own assets and to build up the middle class? I think that's what we need, to build up the black middle class here in South Africa.
100%.
Yeah.
So I suppose the first part of it, in terms of opportunity, there's no doubt that we are entering a period which is mainly going to be characterized by pretty low growth, low inflation, pretty much low interest rates as well. And so I think the need and appetite for real assets is actually escalated, because then your traditional assets are not going to give you the rate of return that you require so that you can retire comfortably.
Yes.
So I think there's definitely an increasing appetite. The regulation has opened up opportunities, but it could have been more aggressive in terms of allocations to direct property or Africa, as an example, or within the alternative space. But that said and done, I think there's a huge opportunity to create a platform that will be able to provide investors or consumers with an opportunity of getting access to the various diversity of real assets that you get from property in one extreme to infrastructure in the other.
Okay.
So I'll be devoting a lot of our energy then in terms of creating this platform, which to a large extent will provide liquidity, it will provide diversity, and it will provide the appropriate capital then to invest more money into growing real estate and real assets in South Africa as well as Africa. On the issue of transformation, I mean, transformation is quite dear to my heart. I think without a transformed South Africa, which still basically has inequalities prevalent in it, I don't think it paints a future which is sustainable for the longevity of this country. So I think transformation is a necessary instrument to start addressing some of those inequalities. So the property sector, as I said, I was very encouraged with the journey that started far back in the early 2000s with the crafting of the charter. And I think to a large extent, some of the objectives that we set aside, I can see progress. But the one area where there hasn't been significant progress has been in terms of, let me put it this way, there's definitely been progress in terms of the number of black practitioners within the industry if I compare today relative to yesterday.
Yeah.
And I think we've got lots of room for improvement when it comes to ownership. I think our ownership is still hasn't made that much of a progress from a black ownership perspective. And I think there's still lots of room as well in terms of getting more women leadership as well as black leadership leading some of our companies.
Yeah.
So I think we definitely need to continue to accelerate and focusing on it as a priority area.
And my feeling on that is that there's a lot of education that is needed, because I've seen people grow real estate from virtually nothing, and I think if we can impart that people learn how to leverage property, and I mean you started off as an investor, as a small investor. We all started somewhere. I started as a small, and a lot of people started with no money and started really. So I think if we can start getting that education across and drive that, then we'll have people owning houses and assets and all that kind of stuff. And for me, I think it's an educational thing, which is first and foremost. I don't know what your views. Would you kind of agree with that?
Education is a key enabler, because I mean, even within Sapor, I'll say the one agenda that has been driven relentlessly is exactly that: is to provide opportunities for people that are outside of the industry to learn about different aspects of property. Because the nice thing about property, there are so many dimensions to it.
Sure.
And I'll say the diversity and the depth of the courses have definitely improved over time. I mean, property studies was not very popular a few years ago.
No.
And I know Prof really was the lone voice at VET at the time. But then now you find it at VET, you find it at UCT, you find it at UP. So more and more people are also studying property on a formalized basis, which is only but helping capacitate the industry, which will only be good for growth.
Great. So in closing, I think, Ben, how do you see your future? How do you see the future of South Africa? I think, you mentioned there's a lot of volatility, and there's also people investing offshore and all that kind of stuff. Maybe just through your viewing glass, maybe where do you see yourself, and where do you see South Africa just in the real estate context?
Yeah, I think, the choices that we make today or tomorrow are going to be quite significant in terms of impacting the legacies that we all live for our kids and grandkids. So I think what's required at the moment is continuous dialogue between private sector and the public sector, and in terms of creating an environment which is conducive for business to thrive and for the country to be stable. As far as opportunities go, As I said earlier, I think we are entering a period within the property cycle where I think growth is going to be quite subdued. But that said and done, there are still plenty of opportunities on remote areas and other parts of the country where development hasn't really focused, and so those will continue to provide growth opportunities. And diversification is the name of the game. So I think the jury clearly is still out. I think investments offshore are very good from leveraging the currency point of view, and are good for just diversifying the property portfolios. So I see that continuing as opposed to abating. Africa is a tough place to operate in, but I think the players that basically lay their flags or basically put in their hard yards will stand to benefit in a few years' time.
Yeah.
So as a business, we've made a commitment towards Africa. So clearly on a 10-year view, we see huge opportunities where the demographics of Africa, I mean, if you look at it, is so underrepresented at the moment, and it has to correct. So we paying the school fees, establishing the relationships that are required, and basically, I suppose, making our presence a bit felt, and we clearly believe that over time we will reap the benefits thereof. So we remain committed then to making South Africa successful, and making the continent also home in the various activities that we invest in.
Fantastic. Ben, one last thing, leaving comment for everybody out there. If there's one thing you could change in the world today, what would it be?
Life is too short, so
yeah.
I guess let's all work hard, not be too selfish. Let's give consideration to making a difference to the lives of others.
Yeah.
And work hard at identifying opportunities, and let's work together exploiting it.
Excellent. Ben, thank you very much for the opportunity. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Great chatting to you. Somebody in so much knowledge, so much experience in the industry. Thank you very much. And it's Ben Kodisang. He's the CEO of Sanlam Investments. You can go online. You can find out a lot more about Ben. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great.